Today's video, I'll be talking about a real consultation that I had on planning, resale timeline, and how to match them together. I'll be using this example of selling a HDB and upgrading to a private resale property. Let's talk about this today. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. And about timeline, this topic is very complex and even a lot of agents are having problems planning and matching them properly with a seamless transition. So today I'm going to break it down for you and make it very simple. We'll go through the HDB selling timeline, the HDB extension stay, private buying timeline, how to match these two timelines together, and lastly, bridging loans, how can you apply it, and what are some hidden things that you need to know in order to use bridging loan correctly. If you are planning to upgrade, you must not skip any part of this video. But if you find the video too long to finish, you can also reach out to me over here for a consult. I'll run through your timeline and match them for you. First is the HDB selling timeline. So this is an illustration that I use to let my sellers have an overview of the whole timeline and the details on when or what they need to pay for. You can pause the video over here if you need to take a closer look. If not, you can always reach out to me for a copy. So before selling or even marketing your HDB, you will need to do the seller intent. So for this, you'll head over to the HDB website, use your SingPass to log in and finish the seller intent. At this part, you only need one owner to log in and fill up the other owner's information for this seller intent. After doing this seller intent, you will only be allowed to grant an option to purchase to a buyer after 7 days. This is known as the cooling period. That's why we will usually do this seller intent before we market the property. And that 7 days will be used to prepare the listing to have all this beautiful media that we use to market your property. So fast forward the marketing part. Once a buyer is interested in your unit, the buyer will place an option fee to secure the option to purchase. And this option fee can be any amount from $1 to $1,000. So the maximum will be $1,000. Of course, nowadays the norm will be the maximum $1,000. This $1,000 that you receive will form part of the purchase price that is agreed on the option to purchase. At this point, as a seller, you must understand that you are already legally binded to this sale and you must only sell to this buyer. The buyer will have 21 days of option period to decide whether they want to go ahead with the purchase. So for the buyers, upon securing this option to purchase, they will need to do the valuation. And of course, if they are taking financing from the bank, this is also the time where they will apply for their loan. Since we are talking about HDB seller upgrading to a private resale property, I'll just show you the buyer's timeline over here for HDB purchase. You can pause over here or reach out to me for a copy, and this is how a buyer's timeline look like. So after the valuation is done, the buyer will know whether there is a cash over valuation. If the valuation comes out to be lower than what is written on the option to purchase, then that difference will be the cash over valuation. That portion cannot be financed, so it will be cash from the buyers. You cannot use CPF, you cannot use loan for that portion. So within that 21 days, when the buyer is satisfied with the valuation and the amount of loan that they can obtain, they will pay the exercise fee to exercise the option. So this exercise fee will also be between $1 to $4,000. So this will also form part of the purchase price that is written on the option to purchase. At this point, the buyers will sign on the acceptance portion of the option to purchase. So once that happens, this option is being exercised and both parties are legally binded to this transaction. Next will be the submission of HDB resale application. So since we are planning a timeline and matching the selling and the buying together, this portion on page 4 is very important. So there will be a blank on page 4 of the option to purchase for you to fill in. So this part is how many days after exercising of the option will both parties submit this resale application to HDB. As a seller, you want to secure a longer days to submission for this part because this is the part where you will find your next housing, going for viewings, negotiating for a purchase deal, and then going into the option to purchase and exercise the option. So this part we will need significant time. Usually you can put something like 60 days or even longer. The rule of thumb is you can put these days to submission as long as the valuation is valid upon submission to the HDB for resale application. So valuation report lasts 3 months from the day of report. So you need to be aware of the date of the valuation. If not, 60 days will be a good gauge that I will go for, because within that 60 days, you will definitely be able to find that property that you want, negotiate for a good deal, and get the option exercised. So what happens after your resale application is being submitted? Within 28 days, HDB will grant the acceptance of this resale application. And again, you can see the illustration over here. After the acceptance of this resale application, it will take about 8 weeks for the whole transaction to be completed. If you have negotiated for a 3 months extension, it will start after the completion date. After estimating the selling completion, this is where you can match your buying timeline to the selling timeline to make it a seamless transition. So this completes the selling timeline, and next I'll cover some important things that you need to take note of when you negotiate for an extension stay. But before that, if you enjoyed the content so far, do subscribe to our channel, hit the like and share button, or if you really need a consult on matching of timelines, you can reach out to me over here and I'll be happy to help you with the planning of your upgrading journey. If you negotiated for a 3 months extension stay, these are the few things that you need to take note of. First up, you need to know that HDB extension should not exceed 3 months. For buyers who are granting the 3 months extension, you also need to know that your MOP only start after the 3 months completion. So if you happen to be able to take possession of the unit earlier, for example after 1 month or 2 months, you must inform HDB that you have taken over so that your MOP will start earlier. The extension stay is granted for sellers to complete or renovate their next housing. So if you are planning to get an extension just to shorten the period of time that you need to rent, for example, if you buy a new launch, that extension will not be approved. During this extension stay, the property must not be rented out as well. It's purely for occupation of the ex-owners, which is also the sellers in this transaction, and the legal occupants. And lastly, the property tax of this property for that 3 months will be calculated as a non-owner occupied property tax, which is 20% of the annual value. So that is something that you need to take note of for the buyers, or if you're reimbursing this amount to the buyers, you need to know that it is not the property tax that you have been paying, but the non-owner occupied property tax rate. So all this, including the days to submission, is being negotiated right up front at the point of paying the option fee. So knowing all this helps you to negotiate a better deal and have a very good idea of what you are going to go through in the next few months. So with the selling timeline and the extension stay out of the way, let's talk about buying a resale private property. After you have confirmed that selling timeline, matching the private resale purchase timeline will be quite simple. So on screen, you will see an illustration of the typical resale private property timeline. In this particular consultation, we are talking about selling the HDB and moving into a private resale property. But if you are planning to upgrade to a different type of property like a larger HDB, private new launch, or even EC, you can reach out to me over here and I'll be happy to customize a timeline for you for your upgrading journey. For private purchase, the option fee will be at least 1%, and that is significantly higher than the $1,000 that you have received for the resale HDB transaction. So it is very advisable for you to only place this 1% after your buyer has exercised the HDB purchase option. After the private resale option is granted to you, typically you have 14 days to exercise the option, and during these 2 weeks, you will be obtaining your mortgage loan from any banks. Of course, this 14 days is negotiable. You can stretch it longer if you need to match it against your selling timeline, but it must be mutually agreed between the seller and yourself. Upon exercising the option to purchase for the private resale property, you will need to pay 4% of the purchase price, making a total of 5% cash that is regulated by MAS. For example, a $2 million resale private property, you will need to pay $100,000 up to the date of exercise. After you exercise, you will also need to pay the stamp duty within the next 2 weeks from the date you exercise. Based on the example of $2 million resale private property, this stamp duty will be $69,600. For resale private property transaction, this stamp duty must be paid in cash first. Then after that, if you have enough CPF funds, you apply for a reimbursement from your CPF funds back back to you. That means you need to have about $170,000 in cash to transit smoothly to your $2 million private resale property. After your exercise date, you will have a typical 8 to 12 weeks of completion period, and that you will be able to estimate your completion date. Nowadays, our company's standard OTP will have a specific date for completion, so you can plan more easily with a confirmed date. Of course, this 8 to 12 weeks is negotiable as well. So according to your needs, you need to negotiate the timeline to match your selling, because before the completion you will need another 20% to complete this purchase, assuming you have the 75% loan. 5% that you have already settled the 100,000. Right before completion, there will be another 20% to make up the total of 25% of the down payment, and the rest will be mortgage loan of 75%. Here comes some common scenarios that I see during many consultations. First scenario is I have the 170,000 in cash, but I do not have enough for the 20% right before the completion of my purchase. This can be easily solved by extending the completion period for your purchase to 3 weeks after your HDB completion date. You'll receive your HDB sale cash proceed on the day of completion. You'll need about 3 weeks for your CPF funds to go back to your OA and be drawn out again for the completion of your purchase. If you have negotiated for the 3 months extension stay, this part is easy. You use the 3 weeks from the extension stay and you will be left with more than 2 months to do some renovation and moving as well. And that is why when you go out to buy a resale HDB, many times you'll meet sellers who require this 3 months extension stay. And here comes the second scenario is, what if you do not have an extension stay? This is when you need a bridging loan. A bridging loan is a facility that you can finance at 20% of the purchase price before the completion of your HDB. You will need an exercise copy of your HDB sale OTP to apply for this bridging loan, and for the bank to disperse that amount to you, you must have already obtained the approval letter from the HDB. The interest rate of bridging loan is usually higher, around 4.25% approximately. However, this is the annual interest. So if you only need this bridging loan for 2 months, they will prorate it from this 4.25 per annum to the period that you need. So the actual interest that you pay is not that high, considering that it is a higher interest rate than your mortgage. So this will bridge the gap between when you need the amount to when you will get your sales proceed back. Then now scenario 3. What if I don't have that 170,000, which means the 5% and the stamp duty amount? For private OTP, the timeline and the terms are all negotiable. So definitely you can tweak the timeline to meet your need. For example, to push the exercise all the way to the HDB completion, which is a very long time. That also means that most sellers will not agree. So how? So we have another facility that is also a bridging loan. This bridging loan specifically is only offered by one bank at this moment of recording. So you just place a 1% option fee. So for the 4% and the stamp duty amount, which is amount to about $150,000, you can apply for this bridging loan. You may have already heard of this facility that allows you to bridge the 4% and the stamp duty. But here are some very important things that you need to take note of, because I haven't heard of any other people sharing in their video on these few important points. Number 1, your option period cannot be 14 days, cannot even be 21 days. It is at least to be 30 days or 45 days to let this facility have enough time to disperse the money for you. And also, whenever you take a bridging loan, for example, the bridging loan that I mentioned previously, the 20%, when you take the bridging loan from this bank, you will need to have their mortgage loan from the same bank as well. Usually the bridging loan is pegged to the mortgage loan. So when there is only one bank that offers this bridging loan to bridge the 4% and stamp duty, naturally you will need to take the mortgage loan from this one bank as well. So as you have guessed it, the interest rate will not be very good. At the time of recording, I saw that other banks are offering about fixed rate 1.45%, while this particular bank is offering at 1.95%. So if you are taking the previous bridging loan that I mentioned, the 20% or almost all banks are offering that, so you can shop around for your mortgage rates. But for this particular bridging loan, bridging the 4% and stamp duty, there's only one bank. You really can't shop around. You just have to take what they offer. And one last point that I never hear anyone talked about for this particular kind of bridging loan is the bridging loan plus the mortgage loan cannot exceed 89% of your purchase price, which means if you are taking 75% loan and you need to bridge the 4% and stamp duty, you cannot bridge the 20% anymore. After exercising the option in a very timely manner, you will need to extend your completion to match the time where you take back the proceeds so that you can come up with the 20% yourself to complete this private purchase transaction. So with all this info, you are able to visualize both your timelines and match them together for a seamless transition. But if you still need help, reach out to me over here and I'll be happy to help, because this step is usually the most daunting, not just for you, but for many agents as well. There are just too many uncertainties even after you know all this, because things change. HDB timeline is not confirmed and you need to have some experience to know how to resolve it when it comes up. Things like a timely submission, endorsing of documents, or making payments after the submission, all this will affect the timeline, and that is why you need to keep an eye on the buyer side, on the seller side, to make things work. It also depends on HDB workload, whether they are able to grant the acceptance of the resale application. Is it 7 days, 12 days, 15 days, or even up to 28 days? So when all these uncertainties come into play, you need to tweak other components so that the timeline still match perfectly. Before I end this video, I just want to leave you with this to prepare you if you are planning your own timeline. There's no perfect timeline. Things change. Uncertainties will be there. So if you need some advice while planning, reach out to me over here and I'll be happy to drop some nuggets of information to you. Or if you need a full-fledged consult, it is free of charge. Just drop me a DM. I'll be happy to meet you up and plan this timeline exactly as you need it for you. This is Ron. Thank you for watching until here. If you have not subscribed to our channel, please do so, because I do this every week. And like and share this video as well, because all this that you are doing really motivate me to get more real cases, real consultation over here to share it with you. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.